Everyone makes mistakes in life, whether you want to or not. We are all human, and there are many financial mistakes I've made in the last 15 years. And while they may be costly and should ideally be kept to a minimum, it's important to recognize these mistakes and understand where you went wrong. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 financial mistakes I've made in the last 15 years. If you're new here, then my name is Ollie. And on this channel, we talk all about personal finance and investing. So if that's something you're into, then don't forget to subscribe. And if you get any value from this video, then I'd really appreciate you smashing the like button, as it helps the channel massively. Also, before we get stuck in, I must be clear, I am not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is intended to be financial advice. And if you want financial advice, you should seek a licensed professional. You should always do your own research because this video is just for entertainment purposes only, and past performance is not indicative of any future results. So anyway, now that's out of the way, the first financial mistake I've made in the last 15 years is not buying a property sooner. Unfortunately, I live in the most expensive part of the British Isles for housing costs, and this was where I grew up. As of November 2022, the average cost of a home here was more than £709,000, which is more than double the UK figure of £294,000. And for comparison, the average house price in London is around £550k. A few years after finishing university, I was close to buying a 2-bedroom flat, which was between 200 and 250k. This was about, I don't know, probably 10 years ago now, somewhere around there. But I forget the exact figure of the property. The mortgage repayments would have been around £800 to £900 a month, but I was talked out of it by someone close to me, as they said to not buy a flat and buy a house instead. So I carried on saving my money. Where I live, the average 2-bedroom flat now costs £536,000. And I found one of the apartments in the same block that I was looking at for sale in 2016, which was 6 years ago, and it was reselling for 459 grand, which is a serious jump. I also nearly bought a 2-bedroom cottage in my early 30s, which was 379k. Surprisingly, this is actually cheap for where I live, and my friend was the estate agent selling it, and he said he had loads of offers above the asking price and above 400k. The average 2-bedroom house price where I live now is
£632,000.
So had I purchased either of these properties, I would have gained from the property value increasing, but I would have also saved a shed load on rent and instead be paying off my own mortgage rather than someone else's. And the stupid thing is, what I could have afforded a few years back, I can no longer afford due to house prices going up so much. But like the rest of the UK, due to interest rates rising and the cost of living crisis, while it is completely unfortunate for many people stuck in this situation, we are in for a correction. But to what extent, we will have to see. Now, you may also be thinking that wages would be higher to match the living costs. And unfortunately, that's not the case. I would personally get a hell of a lot more money if I was in London. And if you look at this BBC News article here, then official statistics show families where I live on the average income of 60k can only afford a mortgage on a 1-bedroom flat, which is pretty shocking. It's also so bad now that families are leaving because they can't afford to pay extortionate amounts of money for a basic house, when instead they could move to the UK and have a really nice house and a much better lifestyle rather than living paycheck to paycheck. And you may say, why don't you leave? And yes, this does cross my mind a lot. The moral of this story is that I should have got on the property ladder a lot earlier, given the chance, because even though I've now saved more money, I actually have less buying power in the market. Anyway, that rant is over. So the next financial mistake I've made in the last 15 years is not investing earlier. When I was younger, I used to save money and put my cash in fixed rate savers, which wasn't the worst thing I could have done with my money, but it also wasn't the best. As mentioned in previous videos, I was told by a large bank that I needed 50 or 100k to start investing. I forget the exact figure now, but it was more money than I had at the time. Stupidly, I didn't question this and thought this would be the case at every bank or broker, but in reality, I wish I had. Whereas nowadays, it's never been easier to invest and you can start with as little as $10 at some online brokers. As base interest rates have been low over the past decade, I was only getting a small percentage of interest from my fixed rate savers. Whereas had I invested in an S&P 500 index tracking fund for the last 10 years, up to and including 2021, then I would have made an inflation adjusted annualized return of 14.55%. For those of you who don't know, the S&P 500 is a basket of 500 of the biggest companies on US stock exchanges, which you can invest in with one purchase. But the last 10 years has been an unusually strong period, and this does not always happen. For example, had we extended this time period to 20 years, the returns per year would be 7%. And for example, this year alone, while we have not got to the end of it yet, the S&P 500 is down 19.68% year to date. But on average, the S&P 500 returns 7 to 10% per year over a long period of time. But the best thing about investing is the potential for compound growth, and that is where your interest earns you more money. So say you started with 1K and earn 10% in a year, then that's $100 of interest. Then the next year, you earn 10% on $1,100. So that year you made $110 in interest, and so on and so on. And if you do this over a long period of time, the interest you make will eventually well outperform what you contributed. For example, if you put $500 a month at a rate of 8% over 30 years, you'll potentially have $745,180, of which you contributed $180K, and $565,180 of that is earned through interest. If instead you contributed $1,000 a month, then at 8% over 26 years, you would end up with over $1 million at $1,042,411. So this is why the earlier you start, the better. Even putting the smallest amount away, you will be thankful for later in life. If you want to know how to get started with investing, then I recommend you checking out this video, which I'll put a link to up here and in the description below. Also, let us know below what financial mistakes you have made in the last 10 years. I'd love to know, and I read all your comments. So the next financial mistake I've made in the last 15 years is focusing on side hustles that replace time for money. Previously, I was doing web design as a side hustle, and this did make me a reasonable amount of money, but the problem with this is that you are replacing time for money. And if you work full-time, you only have X amount of hours after finishing your day job, which in a week doesn't actually equate to much time. For example, say you finish at 5-ish, by the time you get home it's about 6, then by the time you make dinner and eat it, it's probably 7 to half 7. So if you work till 10, that's only 2.5 to 3 hours per day. Over the course of a 5-day week, you've worked a maximum of 15 hours. And this is based on the premise you aren't doing anything else on your weeknights. So it becomes very hard to transition over to it full time, and many people often burn out. This is why I have now transitioned spending more of my time making YouTube videos, where if you make evergreen content like this video, it should never really expire and potentially bring in revenue forever. So if you're considering a side hustle, you should really think what works for you. And if you need ideas for side hustles that anyone can do, then I recommend checking out this video up here, and I'll put the link in the description below also. So my next financial mistake I've made in the last 15 years is partying a lot while younger and spending a lot of money on it. Now let's be clear, I'm not and never have been an alcoholic or anything like that, but my weekends used to revolve around drinking every Friday and Saturday night. And I'm not saying don't have fun while you're young, because I had a great time, but I would hate to work out how much I've actually spent on booze over the years. Generally, every night out used to be upwards of at least £60, so even if I was conservative and went out one night a weekend, that's at least £240 a month. If I went out both nights, that's £480 a month. And while I never used to get hangovers, the older you get, they inevitably creep in. And so you become a lot less productive the next day. And often I did not move far from my kitchen or sofa. So I'm in no way saying don't enjoy your youth, but if there's one thing I've learned as I've got older, it is that life is short. And if you want to be a millionaire, then you are realistically going to need to work more and work harder, which you can't do if you're out drinking all weekend or hungover on a sofa. So the next financial mistake I've made in the last 15 years is buying cheap items. As I've got older, I've definitely realized that spending a bit more on quality goods will save you money in the long run. I'm not sure if this mindset was instilled in me from my university days, but as I've got older, I've definitely realized that the old saying of buy cheap than buy twice is often true. Now, some things you can buy the cheapest version of it, but other things it just makes sense to spend more. A great example is shoes. I used to buy cheap, pleather shoes for work from ASOS for like 30 quid, but I was replacing them every 6 months or so. My boss told me if you buy quality leather shoes and look after them, then they can last an incredibly long time. And he wasn't wrong. So now when it comes to shoes, I would rather pay more for leather shoes. And while they cost more up front, they honestly last a very long time and have saved me more money in the long run. Obviously, you've still got to be careful. Like, my shoes cost roughly 100 quid, but I'm sure you could buy shoes for a few hundred if you wanted. So buy the best quality you can without going overboard. I'm hoping that by highlighting my mistakes, it can help prevent someone else from making the same mistakes. But avoiding these mistakes is just the beginning. And in reality, this should get you thinking about how to save more money. So I recommend you watch this video next for how to save 100k fast. It's been Ollie from Get Geek Finance. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.